flipping through the newspapers, switching through multiple news channels, exploring different websites and online mediums for relevant news? Keeping up to date with important news is not only time-consuming but also requires meticulous upkeep of notes for thorough revision. With a limited period in hand and abundant resources to study from, do not let current affairs come in the way of your prelims success. Join the PT 365 program by Vision IAS and advance in your preparation for current affairs. Starting on 9th January at 5 p.m., this 20-day course offers comprehensive coverage of 1 year of current affairs in 60 hours. Join for improved knowledge with complete coverage of The Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Economic Times, Yojana, Economic Survey, etc. Doubt-clearing sessions and mentoring for thorough knowledge. Access to Sandhan personalized test with 25,000 plus questions. Access to live and online classes for flexibility in timing. It's time to devote your energy to smart learning and not running. Enroll today and excel in UPSC prelims with a strong command of current affairs.
Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. Chief Justice of India initiated an in-house inquiry into conduct of Delhi High Court judge. India plans to eliminate the 6% equalization levy on online advertising services. Rajya Sabha passes the Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024. Permafrost melting emerges as a new environmental threat in Kashmir Himalayas. Over half of global crop production dependent on just 9 crops, says FAO. James Webb Space Telescope captures a star in making. A significant development in the judiciary. Chief Justice of India has initiated an in-house inquiry into the conduct of a Delhi High Court judge. So, what does this inquiry entail? And what is the legal framework governing such proceedings? Let's break it down. To begin with, the internal inquiry will be carried out by a 3-member committee. This committee comprises the Chief Justices of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Himachal Pradesh High Court, and Karnataka High Court. Now, what is the judiciary's in-house inquiry procedure? It was introduced by the Supreme Court after identifying a gap in the law. While impeachment under Article 124 addresses severe judicial misconduct, there was no mechanism for cases that, though serious, did not warrant impeachment. This was highlighted in the 1995 C. Ravichandran Iyer versus Justice A. M. Bhattacharjee case. Further refining the process, in 2014, the Supreme Court laid down a 7-step in-house procedure in the Additional District and Sessions Judge X versus Registrar General Madhya Pradesh High Court case. So, how does the procedure work? It begins with the initiation. Complaints can be lodged with the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court, the Chief Justice of India, or even the President of India, who then forwards it to the CJI. Next comes the preliminary review. If the allegations are credible, the CJI may request a preliminary report from the Chief Justice of the relevant High Court. If the report suggests further investigation, the CJI can constitute a 3-member inquiry committee. This includes 2 Chief Justices from other High Courts and 1 High Court judge. The committee has the authority to design its own procedure while ensuring adherence to natural justice principles. The accused judge also gets a chance to present their case. Once the inquiry is complete, the committee submits its report to the CJI and the accused judge. If serious misconduct is found, the CJI may advise the judge to resign or retire. If the judge refuses, the CJI can direct the High Court Chief Justice to withhold judicial work from the judge. The matter is then forwarded to the President and the Prime Minister to initiate removal proceedings. But what happens if removal proceedings are initiated? The Constitution of India provides for the impeachment of judges under Article 124 Clause 4 and for Supreme Court judges, and Article 217 extends the same provision to High Court judges. The grounds? Well, proven misbehavior and incapacity. Though the Constitution does not explicitly define these terms, the entire removal process is regulated by the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. This case underscores the judiciary's internal mechanism for ensuring accountability while maintaining judicial independence. Moving ahead, A major shift in India's digital tax policy. India is set to eliminate the 6% equalization levy on online advertising services. According to new amendments proposed in the Finance Act 2016, this tax will no longer apply starting April 1, 2025. So, what is the equalization levy and why was it introduced? Let's break it down. The equalization levy is a direct tax introduced by the Finance Act 2016. It is imposed on digital transactions, specifically targeting the income of foreign e-commerce companies generated from India. This includes income from advertising, primarily covering business-to-business transactions. Later, in 2020, the scope of this levy was expanded to include e-commerce supply and services. But why was this tax introduced in the first place? The reasons were clear: to create a level playing field between domestic and international companies, prevent companies from avoiding taxation due to a lack of physical presence in India, ensure that foreign e-commerce giants contribute to India's tax system, and recognize the surge in digital transactions, especially post-COVID-19. However, the equalization levy has not been without challenges. It has led to trade friction with the US, which sees it as a barrier to overseas trade. There is a risk of retaliatory tariffs, which could impact Indian companies operating abroad. Double taxation and compliance burden have also been concerns, as foreign companies may end up paying taxes twice, increasing operational costs. Now, what transactions are subjected to this levy? A 6% levy applies to payments made to non-residents for digital ad space, online advertisements, and related services. Earlier, a 2% levy was imposed on revenue earned by non-resident e-commerce operators. However, this was abolished on August 1, 2024. Additionally, since the levy was not introduced as part of the Income Tax Act, global firms paying it in India cannot claim tax credits in their home countries under double taxation avoidance agreements. With the removal of this levy, India's tax policy on digital services is set for a significant transformation. While this move may ease trade tensions, its impact on domestic digital taxation remains to be seen.
In a significant step towards strengthening the country's disaster preparedness, the Rajya Sabha has passed the Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024. Let's dive into the details and understand what this bill brings to the table. The bill aims to shift from a reactive approach to a more proactive, innovative, and participatory strategy in tackling disasters. Let's take a closer look at the key highlights of the bill. First up, disaster management plans. The National Disaster Management Authority or NDMA, along with the State Disaster Management Authorities or SDMAs, will now be responsible for preparing disaster management plans. Adding to that, the functions of both NDMA and SDMA have been expanded. New responsibilities include periodically reviewing disaster risks, including extreme climate events, setting guidelines for minimum relief standards, and even creating national and state disaster databases. Moving on to appointments, the bill empowers NDMA to decide on the number and categories of officers and employees, with prior approval from the central government. One major addition is the focus on urban areas. The bill empowers state governments to create separate urban disaster management authorities for state capitals and cities with municipal corporations or MCs. Another key feature, the creation of the State Disaster Response Force or SDRF. The bill allows state governments to establish this force, define its functions, and lay out service terms for its members. Notably, the bill also grants statutory status to key committees, the National Crisis Management Committee or NCMC and the High Level Committee or HLC. The NCMC will serve as a nodal body to manage major disasters with serious or national impacts, while the HLC will focus on providing financial assistance to state governments during disaster situations. Now, let's take a quick look at the existing Disaster Management Act 2005, the backbone of disaster response in India. This act provides the legal and institutional framework for effective disaster management. It establishes the NDMA, SDMAs, and District Disaster Management Authorities or DDMAs, ensuring disaster preparedness and risk reduction at respective levels. On the financial side, the Act ensures a robust mechanism by setting up the National Disaster Response Fund or NDRF and State Disaster Response Funds or SDRF. Additionally, it includes a National Disaster Mitigation Fund and similar funds at state and district levels to ensure that resources are available when needed most. So, in summary, the Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024 aims to revolutionize disaster management in the country with a proactive, data-driven and decentralized approach, a crucial step in making India disaster resilient.
Now we bring you a critical environmental concern emerging from the Kashmir Himalayas, permafrost melting and its far-reaching consequences. A new study published in Remote Sensing Applications, Society and Environment has assessed the implications of permafrost degradation-related hazards in Jammu and Kashmir, Himalayas. Let's dive into the key findings. First, what exactly is permafrost? It refers to any ground that remains completely frozen, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius or colder, for at least 2 consecutive years. Now, according to the study, permafrost covers 64.8% of the total geographic area of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Breaking this down further, 26.7% of this is continuous permafrost, meaning most of the soil remains frozen. 23.8% is discontinuous permafrost, where more than half of the soil stays frozen, and 14.3% is sporadic, meaning frozen patches appear intermittently. Now, an alarming finding. Scientists identified 332 pro-glacial lakes in the region. Of these, 65 have varying degrees of glacial lake outburst flood risks. We have already witnessed disasters such as Chamoli in 2021 and South Lonak in 2023, both linked to permafrost degradation. But what exactly is a pro-glacial lake? It forms when meltwater from a glacier accumulates in a depression or when its flow is damped. The study also highlights crucial infrastructure and security risks. Many strategic roads in Ladakh pass through permafrost zones, posing potential hazards due to thawing ground. Moreover, hydrological changes are expected to impact river flow and groundwater availability. But what is driving this permafrost degradation? Rising surface temperatures remain the primary factor. Additionally, natural events such as earthquakes can trigger permafrost breakdown. Human activities such as deforestation, real estate expansion, construction of roads and dams are further accelerating the process. So, what is the way forward? Experts emphasize integrated planning, incorporating permafrost and cryosphere data into regional infrastructure development, land use planning, and risk-sensitive zoning regulations. Additionally, enhanced monitoring is crucial. Scientists recommend the use of satellite-based remote sensing and ground-based LiDAR technology to track permafrost degradation and its associated geomorphological changes. Lastly, strengthening environmental impact assessments is imperative. The study calls for an explicit assessment of risks associated with permafrost thaw, including its role in triggering gulfs, landslides, and slope instability. Clearly, permafrost degradation is not just an environmental issue, but a pressing concern with implications for infrastructure, security, and disaster preparedness.
Now, we're diving into an eye-opening report from the Food and Agriculture Organization, revealing that over half of global crop production depends on just 9 crops. Let's take a closer look at what this means for our food systems and biodiversity. According to the third report on the state of the world's plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, these 9 crops include sugarcane, maize, rice, wheat, potatoes, soybeans, oil palm, sugar beet, and cassava. But what's happening to crop diversity? The report highlights a troubling trend. Diversity at both species and variety levels is being replaced by uniformity in the agricultural marketplace. This shift supports commercial production systems where crop varieties are bred to meet the strict requirements of high input farming, industrial processing, and demanding market standards. One major consequence of this shift is the loss of farmer varieties and land races, traditional locally adapted crops. The highest percentage of this threatened diversity is found in southern Africa, followed by the Caribbean and Western Asia. In contrast, regions like Southern Asia, Australia, and New Zealand have reported the least genetic erosion. On-farm conservation efforts are also facing challenges. In India, over 50% of farmer varieties and land races across 5 agroecological zones are considered threatened, highlighting the urgent need for conservation measures. Beyond the fields, challenges extend to ex situ conservation, that's preserving plant genetic diversity in gene banks and seed vaults. The report points to sporadic funding, a shortage of qualified staff, and lack of political support and poor infrastructure as key obstacles. Crop genetic diversity plays a crucial role in ensuring a resilient and sustainable food system. It supports conservation and utilization, which are essential for preserving valuable genetic resources that could be lost over time. This diversity also boosts adaptation and resilience, enabling crops to withstand environmental changes. Moreover, it contributes to food security and addressing global challenges by ensuring a stable food supply and improving nutritional availability for growing populations. Additionally, crop improvement and breeding efforts heavily rely on genetic diversity, providing the raw material needed to develop improved, high-yielding and resilient crop varieties. So, what can be done to safeguard crop diversity? The report offers several recommendations, starting with developing national seed policies that promote diverse cropping systems. It also calls for increased funding from both the public and private sectors to support plant genetic resources research and conservation. Additionally, improving data sharing and standardizing research methods could enhance efficiency. The report also advocates for promoting modern biotechnologies to accelerate crop breeding efforts. Despite these challenges, efforts to conserve crop diversity are already underway. Globally, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault on the Norwegian island of Spitsbergen serves as a secure backup facility for the world's crop diversity. Meanwhile, the Leipzig Declaration reinforces international commitments to conserving plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. Closer to home, India is also making strides. The seed bank scheme ensures certified seeds produced in the country are kept in buffer stock for future use. Additionally, the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources acts as the nodal organization for managing plant genetic resources across India. The message is clear: preserving crop diversity is vital for food security, climate resilience, and sustainable agriculture. Moving on, an incredible cosmic event has been captured. The James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, has given a breathtaking look at a star in the making. Let's dive into this fascinating discovery. NASA and the European Space Agency have released stunning composite images showing a plume of gas and dust streaming from a forming star, located about 625 light-years away in one of the closest star-forming regions of our very own Milky Way galaxy. Known as a successor to the iconic Hubble Space Telescope, the JWST is an advanced space-based observatory. Launched in 2021, is designed to study the universe, particularly in the infrared spectrum, giving us a clearer look at distant galaxies, nebulae, and even newborn stars like this one. But how exactly does a star come to life? Let's explore the life cycle of a star. It all begins with a nebula, a massive cloud of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium and dust. Under the pull of gravity, this cloud starts to collapse into denser, spinning regions, forming what's known as a protostar, a dense, spinning core surrounded by a protostellar disk, where gravity pulls material inward, causing it to heat up. As the core heats up enough, hydrogen fusion begins, and the star enters what's called the main sequence. This is the longest and most stable phase of a star's life, where it steadily fuses hydrogen into helium. Our very own Sun, in fact, is about halfway through its main sequence journey. When hydrogen in the core is depleted, the star evolves based on its mass. Low to medium mass stars like our Sun experience their cores contracting while the outer layers expand, turning into a red giant. Meanwhile, more massive stars expand into supergiants, beginning to fuse heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, and eventually iron in successive stages. As a star nears its final stages, the endgame unfolds differently for stars of different masses. Low to medium mass stars eject their outer layers, creating a planetary nebula, leaving behind the dense, non-fusing core, a white dwarf. If this core's mass remains under 1.4 times the Sun's mass, a limit known as the Chandrasekhar limit, it remains stable. For high-mass stars, those with at least 10 times the Sun's mass, the finale is far more dramatic, when the core accumulates ion fusion halls and the core collapses under its own gravity, and rebounds in a catastrophic explosion called supernova. Depending on the remaining core mass after the explosion, one of two extraordinary outcomes occurs. If the core is between 1.4 and 3 times the Sun's mass, it becomes an incredibly dense neutron star. However, if the remnant exceeds roughly 3 solar masses, it collapses into a black hole with gravity so strong that not even light escapes. In today's place in news, let's turn our attention to Türkiye with its capital Ankara, where protests have erupted following the arrest of President Erdogan's political rival, sparking significant political tensions. Turning to some key facts about the country, Türkiye lies partly in Asia and partly in Europe. It shares borders with Georgia and Armenia to the northeast, Greece and Bulgaria to the northwest, Azerbaijan and Iraq to the east, and Iraq and Syria to the southeast. It's also surrounded by 3 major water bodies, the Black Sea to the north, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Aegean Sea to the southwest and west. Geographically, Türkiye boasts impressive natural features. Key rivers include the Euphrates, Tigris, and Kızılırmak, while Mount Ararat stands as its highest peak. Strategically vital to global trade, Türkiye controls the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits, which connect the Black Sea to the Aegean Sea through the inland sea of Marmara.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Recently, the Lok Sabha passed the Finance Bill 2025. The Constitution divides financial legislation into 2 categories, namely Money Bills, Article 110, and Financial Bills, Article 117. Financial bills are further classified into 2 categories, Article 117 Clause 1 and Article 117 Clause 3. Rajya Sabha can reject or amend these bills like ordinary bills. RRBs achieved a record profit of 7,571 crore rupees in financial year 2023-24, while key financial indicators such as CRAR, deposits, NPAs, and CD ratio also showed steady improvement. Regarding their genesis, RRBs were formed in 1975 under the RRB Act 1976. Recently, the Central Board of Direct Taxes notified amendments to the income tax rules to increase the threshold for availing safe harbour from 200 crore rupees to 300 crore rupees. The safe harbour rule is a critical component of India's transfer pricing framework, as it aims to reduce litigation by allowing eligible taxpayers to adopt predefined prices for specified international transactions. The National Payments Corporation of India, or NPCI, has recently launched BHIM, Bharat Interface for Money 3.0. One of the salient features of BHIM 3.0 is its expanded language support, making it now available in more than 15 Indian languages. A decade after Nalanda University was established in the foothills of Rajgir, work is now underway to revive another ancient center of learning in Bihar, Vikramshila. Vikramshila University was founded by the Pala king Dharampala in the 8th-9th century AD, and it thrived alongside Nalanda. The medium-term and long-term government deposit, or MLTGD, components of the Gold Monetization Scheme, or GMS, have been discontinued with effect from March 26, 2025. The Gold Monetization Scheme was launched in 2015 with the aim of reducing gold imports and mobilizing household and institutional gold for productive use. The department-related Standing Committee on Science and Technology, Environment, Forest and Climate Change has raised concerns over the inadequate expenditure under the Control of Pollution Scheme in the financial year 2024-25. The scheme is administered by the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solutions to the quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description below.